All right. I'm Ruth Kowal. Some of you have seen me before over the past year and a half. I've been working for the library as a consultant. I was brought on board to work on the library building program, and we diverted our attention for a brief period of time to work on a strategic plan because we really needed that in order to move forward with a building program. We needed to know what services does the community want out of their library, and then can the library building that we have support and deliver those services, or do we need to be looking at some changes to that facility moving forward? So I don't actually have a presentation for you tonight, or a particular agenda, but I did bring with me some illustrative material, which I think helps lay the foundation for where we started and where we ended up. Some of you may have heard the presentation that I did at town meeting. I don't know, you're putting the PowerPoint up on the website or not? Yeah, there's a PowerPoint that I did which lays out a little bit about how we collected community information and what we learned from the community. And so I'll talk about the charts that are up here quickly, and then I just want to give people a chance to ask questions, make comments, whatever happens to be on your mind around the library and where the library may be going in the next 5 to 20 years if we're talking about a building program. Karen, if someone has a question or a comment, she's just going to jot them down so we can capture those, and if we need to get back to people with some information, that we have that question or comment in front of us and we can refer to it. So it's very casual. It's just, a little bit of an information session. As I said, nothing formal this evening. But I want to start here with the strategic plan, which is something that, a lot of people don't pay much attention to plans when they get put in place, except the people who are working with them. And the people who are working with this plan primarily are your library director, Karen, the Board of Trustees, the Library Foundation, and the staff who work in this library. Because this really is the roadmap for where the library is going and where it's going to be expending its resources, its budget, its people resources, where its time and energy will be put. So we have a nice vision statement that is here, that the library strives to enrich and strengthen the community. Kind of a nice high-level statement. The mission statement is that the library inspires curiosity, fosters lifelong learning by connecting people and ideas. It provides access to a wide variety of resources, technology, and experiences in a welcoming and supportive environment. And then there are 5 buckets where the library is going to be focusing in its energy. Service excellence, that it strives to be an inviting place that provides exemplary customer service. And there are some activities that are listed here that would represent the library achieving that. Books and resources. The library offers a variety of print, audio, visual, digital materials that respond to the recreational and informational needs of the community. It's a community gathering place, very important for this community and for large communities. It doesn't really matter these days. The library role as a community gathering place is very important. Library serves as a place for individuals and groups to foster existing connections and form new relationships with others, bringing people together. Programs and activities, another high priority. Library endeavors to entertain and inspire creativity by offering a variety of enriching experiences. And then technology and innovation. It's a resource for technology, digital content, and assist people with incorporating technology into their lives. Many hours of community input through survey, through focus groups we did. We had the flip charts up in the library that people wrote comments on and suggestions. We have some members of our planning committee here in the room tonight who worked very hard to take all of the ideas and suggestions that have been made and to winnow those down to something that provided us with a workable structure and a plan. Now behind this, every year Karen and the board develop an annual action plan that says, okay, service excellence, what are the things we're actually going to do in the next fiscal year in order to be successful in this particular area? Books and resources, what are the specific things that we're going to do? You know, are we going to completely replace one section of the collection because it's gotten a little bit old? And so we want to have a budget line that's going to do that. It's a very specific activity. So that tells us what the library is going to be focusing its energies on in terms of delivering service out to the community. So I want to go next to just a few little quick facts about the library, which I think are interesting. So the first one is, how do people use it? Between January of 2017 and the beginning of May of this year, over 3,300 residents use their library card. So it's basically about a third of the population in, 30-month period, something like that, which is a pretty good number of people coming in and using it. What's really interesting is, in the past year, there were 44,000 items that were borrowed for home use, so books and DVDs and things like that. 58,000 digital books were downloaded. Growing area of business, but they're still kind of keeping neck and neck. 1,500 people attended a library program. Library computers were used 3,500 times, and museum passes borrowed 600 plus times. Now, what's interesting is Karen sent me some library use statistics for the fiscal year through the end of through the end of April. Big increases in borrowing, downloading, everything. It's up. Something's going on in Hanson, and I don't know if it's just people are more aware of the library as a resource because there's been some activity going on. You have a new director who's doing things a little differently. Maybe social media is bringing more people in to use the library, but the trend is up, which is great. So let's talk a little bit about the current building. In February of 1988, $17,000 was approved to fund a design development phase. There was some local grant and trust fund money that went towards that design development. And in October of that year, $2 million was appropriated to fund construction of the complex, the library and the senior center together. The building opened in 1991. The total square footage is just a little over 1,100 square feet, of which the library has about 8,000, just slightly over 8,000. The building was paid for by the town of Hanson and some private donations. No state grant funds were received at that time. The state grant program was brand new, basically, when that project was being thought about. Still continues to this day. There's active discussion going on between the Board of Library Commissioners, the state agency that oversees the distribution of state funds out to libraries, and the legislature to try to get another round of these building program grants in the pipeline. And so the timing of things for Hanson is both a hurry up and a wait and see, I think. You want to be ready to go. You want to have things lined up so that if one of those state grant programs is funded, you have in place what you need in order to be eligible. And that's where I came into the picture originally, was for a library building program, which is, we'll get to talk about that in a little bit. So just a little bit about funding now of the library operation. The library budget for the last fiscal year is $424,000 and change, plus another almost $10,000 for repairs to the heating system. there's a really interesting tool that was actually developed by the Massachusetts Library Association and now has been adopted by the American Library Association, which is a library value calculator. It says, for example, the average price of a hardbound book is $17. You know, some cost less, some cost more, but the average price is that. When you fill in what the usage was this prior year, the value of services back to the town of Hanson was over $1 million of value. So the return on investment of the $400,000 the town put in returned back to the people who use this library over $1 million in value. Those of you who use the library know if you buy books, what it costs, if you download a book, what it costs, if you pay to go to visit the museum, you know what it costs. Those are all services that everybody shares in here in town when they use the library resources. So that's just sort of a side set of facts for you. So let's talk a little bit about the building program study. When we did the community input for the strategic plan, in addition to asking about services, we asked a question that was actually this question: if the library redesigned its space, which of the following would you like to see? And we also had asked a question which was, members of my household would use the library more if there were. And there are services and some aspects of the building that are in here. And then we asked people to tell us what was important to them. So those 3 questions really created a foundation for us to think about what the library needed to be like as it delivered services. People still want to borrow books and DVDs and things. It's still a high priority in Hanson and in other communities. It hasn't gone away, even though people think it has. They think it's all digital. Programs and classes for children. 72% of the respondees rated that highly. They want library staff who are knowledgeable and can help them with things like, how do I use my computer? I need a book recommendation. I want something good to read. They want access to computers, printers, technology. Delivery of materials to the homebound with aging in place becoming more prevalent. People want to know they can get library materials at home. Programs and classes for adults. You add that to programs and classes for children, was at the top of the heap. Expanded learning opportunities for the community, partnerships, assistance with technology, more hours, and then the downloading of digital books, music, and movies. And if you come over to people would use the library more if there were more public programs. So here it is again. People want things happening here. They want the hours worked on. They want to be able to come in and use the library when they're not working. More museum passes. Comfortable seating with natural lighting, outdoor views, so the building's starting to actually kick in here. A larger unified area for children's activities. A lot of the circulation, I think it's about 30% of the circulation is children's materials. And the population is not 30% of the residents of the community. About 30% is children's use. They want it to be easier to get to the collection. No more, stacks like this, like that. Make it easy to find things. More places to use personal computers. This is one of the places where the building's age shows up in terms of where electrical outlets are, for example, and the kind of tables and seating that is available here. More comfortable seating, quiet study areas, and a unified area for tweens, teens, and young adults. We don't have it right now at all. So then we asked people if we redesigned the space. We didn't say we were building a new building. We just said if we were redesigning it, maybe we've got a big enough footprint that we can just, move things around a little bit. Which of the following would you like to see? Separate children's program, creative learning area. Expanded unified children's area. Incorporation of outdoor space into library space, something very popular in libraries now. You know, they've got a little courtyard there. Library has a little courtyard, some space, people can go out, you can do story hours outdoors, you can have a poetry reading outdoors. The two flow back and forth. Expanded leisure seating area. People like to come to the library and they like to spend time. They like to sit down in a different place than their house, and they like to chat with the person who's sitting near them. Maybe it's a neighbor or a friend. And so they want a place that's comfortable. Expanded, unified tween, teen, young adult area. 33% of people said they'd like to see that here. More natural air flowing through the building. Windows that open. More accessible shelving. Ability to access public meeting space when the library's closed. It's a big priority for most libraries that are being built now. It's how do you have a meeting room that an organization can use when the library's not open. It's got its own security password code that people get when they're going to use it. Private study, small group study rooms. Some space for the historical collection, art exhibit area, and small meeting rooms. A group, 10, 12 people want to come in and have a meeting. So my task as the project consultant was to say, okay, this is what people are looking for. There are a couple of standards that the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners look for in these library building programs. And I should just say, the library building program is the first entree into being eligible to have potentially one of the state building grants. So that's why this is important. It's not just that we thought it would be a nice thing to do. This library building program is the first step if you want to apply at some point in the future for one of the library building grants. So my job was to look at what people wanted for services, what they had told us they would like the building to be like, what kind of services were offered in what kind of an environment, to look at the current building and see the degree to which that building could actually deliver those services. So I mentioned the Board of Library Commissioners have a couple of standards that they are looking for. One is the size of the book collection as it relates to the community, the residents, number of residents in the community. And I'm trying to remember what the other one is, actually. I've forgotten. Do you remember? It might be seating. It might be seating. I think it's seating in the building. They want to make sure that you have enough seats of different kinds based, again, on the population. So I looked at the building, and as I have said, I said at town meeting, it's a beautiful building. It's architecturally lovely, but it is really tight. It's really small. My recommendation is a building that is twice the size of what you currently have. Instead of an 8,000 square foot building, it's almost 16,000 square feet. And that's based on a very detailed schedule of how many reader seats would be in a particular area, what the collection size would be in a particular area, what kinds of activities would be going on in there. And when you add all of those things up, you say, okay, if at the main entry point, we're going to have some kind of a welcome desk with a computer on it and chairs and a place that books can be returned, and maybe it's a couple of chairs for the public to sit on there when they come in. If they're waiting for someone, they want to be able to just sit and rest, or it's a bench in the main entryway. How many square feet does that require? So each one of the areas of activity have a square footage that's assigned to it. This is a document. It's online. You can get a hard copy of it from the library if you want to go in and dig into all the details on it. My job was to say, okay, you want these services, you want a library that feels like this is what is required. I will tell you, for a community this size, that's not out of line for a library. The libraries that are being built now are that size for communities this size. They're all very open floor plan. You know, children's may have glass containment so that the noise, it can be noisy in the children's room, but not interfere with people who want to come in and sit in those nice leisure reading chairs that you've got there. And they won't be interfered with because the children are making a lot of noise. That the teens and tweens have their space that is, you know, you can supervise it, but you're not really there. So they feel like they have their little private spot in the building, and they can come in and work on school projects. You know, have a small group study room that they can go into if you have, you know, 3 or 4 of them that need to actually work together on something. Maybe they're working on some kind of a presentation on their laptop computer. They need to be able to set it up there, and they need to be able to talk it through. And so you want a study room or some study rooms where they can do that sort of thing. You know, you have people in town, I'm sure, that are working out of the home. They want to be able to come in, use the technology resources that are here. They may want to have a meeting with a client, and we'll use one of the study rooms. People who are tutoring would use study rooms. And everything is flexible in terms of furniture, lots of casters on things. Circulation desk is on casters, so if you don't like it where it is, it's easy to move it. The circulation desk that is here now is like, it's like the Titanic out there. You walk in the desk, the door, it's like, okay, where's the staff? You know, the first time I walked into the building, I said, all right, I know there are staff in here somewhere, and I kept walking, and there they were, sort of behind the desk, being very nice and very helpful. But it's a big, massive 1991 wooden desk, and they are gone now. They're gone. Things have changed. The way people want their spaces, and the way we want to be prepared. So 10 years from now, if we have a new building that has flexibility built into it, we're able to adjust when people's interests and the needs of the community change. We don't have to rebuild it again. We're able to say, oh, we need a bigger children's area. We can shift things around easily without having to take down a wall or, you know, move really heavy furniture around. So flexibility, open, light, welcoming, a community resource, a place people want to come to, where people want to get together, a place where people come to learn, enjoy. You know, we've got the groundwork laid out now, and it's just going to be a lot of work for Karen and the board and the people who support the library to move it forward over time, to get to the place where you have something new and different. Whether it's on this site with some expansion, renovation, whether it's on a new site. I think you're aware that there's planning going on right now for the senior center, the multi-service center. Those two are probably going to, you know, be on some kind of a commingled path because they need space desperately too. And so that will potentially inform the library's future and its site as well. So kind of an overview. I don't know if I left out anything you think is mission critical, but you know, questions, comments, thoughts, you know, it's up to you. Anybody?
So how does this proceed? How does it move forward?
All right, so the next steps in the process are, I think there were 4 that I laid out in the town meeting presentation. The first is that there really needs to be some conversation probably that takes place with town officials, library board, Karen obviously, potentially state officials, depending on what happens legislatively, to lay out a plan, a timetable for what would happen next. There are still grant funds available to the library that can be used to do some preliminary design work, but in order to do that, you really need to know whether it's going to be here or somewhere else, so there has to be that conversation about a site And that's why it does tie back to the planning being done by the senior center. So that, these projects are sort of intertwined, and things get put on the table and then things change and they evolve. So that conversation will be ongoing for a while. Best of all possible worlds gets into the town's capital plan. The state does not fund 100%, 50%, sometimes a little more if it's a LEED certified building with, some like solar panels on the roof and certain kinds of construction are done on it. The percentage is a little bit higher. So that has to happen. And then lots of conversation ultimately with community about what it really would look like. Architect is brought on, design the new building. Does it do what people want? You got to watch the architects carefully to make sure they're not designing something they like. You want a building that works. You want it to be nice, but you want it to work. So you need a building committee that's going to be there to ask those hard questions, so you get the building you want. It takes time.
So if it was this building and the senior center is gone, do you still have the room to expand? Is there area to expand the building?
Out that direction. We presume there is room, and the McQuon School is one of the sites that is a potential site, and the land, is adjacent. So whether it's the senior center, the library, I think that's all in play as a possibility. Yep. The challenge with this building and expanding it for the library, it's two or three things. It's not always less expensive to do an expansion renovation. It may ultimately cost more. It will take a very skilled architect to do, I think, an addition to this building and be able to sustain its integrity architecturally. But I'm not saying they can't do that, but you will need a really good architect who can do that. The third is, right now the building is very long, and I think you all are very aware that municipalities like to keep the head count down and the pension costs down, and so there's the need to have a building that's very efficient to staff. And when you have a long building, it becomes harder to have a building that you have enough staff to be able to supervise it and to be present in the building. And I would highly advise that you do not go to a multi-story building, because it immediately means staff.
Yeah.
So other questions, thoughts? Yes?
As of the time you start to add on to the building, when are you going to start doing teen spaces?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'll be a teen. You'll be in college probably. It's like, yeah. The question is, when the building gets added on to, is made bigger, how are we going to have teen spaces? Is that what you're looking for? Yeah. So that's a good question. How the teen space is designed will be part of that bigger architectural planning for the building. And it's going to be important that all of the different constituencies in the community have an opportunity to sort of weigh in about the space. And so I would encourage the building committee to be talking with teens at that time about what the space is like. Is this something that speaks to you? Karen and I have had a little bit of conversation. She's been trying to figure out if there's anything that can be done in the current building to create at least a corner or a space that teens could use at this point. So it's definitely on her mind, and I think she'll probably keep running some ideas through her mind and see if there's something that can be done. One of the challenges for libraries is that when people want something new or different, what are we going to give up? Because in order to make space for the new thing, we probably have to let something go. And so looking at how things are being used, how people are using the building, what's in the building for different collections, are there some things that we can reconfigure, or we just don't really need them anymore? Maybe we rely on the libraries that are part of the sales network for a certain part of the collection, for example, that we make some decisions about what are the things that the people in Hanson really want to use, and if we need something that's beyond that, we go to our sales network and we go statewide to get things for people. And the online systems are so strong at this point and make it so easy for people to request things from another library. And the delivery service is relatively strong, I would say. And so stuff comes quickly for people. If it's on the shelf somewhere, you get it pretty fast. You don't have to do it alone anymore, which is really good. Hanson can focus its energies on the things that are most important to the people who are residents of Hanson, and then rely on this larger universe to fill in. And the same is true with your neighboring communities. Who's got a strong collection in this? Who's got a strong collection in that? I was doing a trustee focus group in another community last night, and one of the trustees said, I really wish that network, which was not sales, would be more collaborative in how they look at collections, and that our library would specialize in these things and the library next door would specialize in those things. Because you can walk in with your library card if you can get to the other library and use the collection. There's no barrier there. It was interesting though, that for that trustee, that was something that was on his mind. He didn't want them to be just thinking within their buildings that they had in that community. So, other questions, comments, thoughts? Anybody won the lottery recently? So.
Things could move along fast.
Yeah, just people, nobody's asked me this question yet, but I actually have an answer of sorts to you, and that is, if we were building this complex today, what would it cost? And if we were building a 16,000 square foot building, what would that likely cost? If we were building this whole facility today, in today's dollars, it would be probably about a $4 million, $5 million building.
And what did it cost when it was built?
2.
Okay.
So 30 years, it's doubled in cost, which probably is not too bad, actually. If we were to, the cost for doing a library building, depending on how you fit it out, furniture, what the wall covering, the floor covering, all of those sorts of things, it's about $500 a square foot. So for a 16,000 square foot building, you're talking about a building, $8-9 million. So it's not minor, but it's not out of line at all. So it's going to require some planning and some hard work. And people who care about the library are going to need to, express their support for it. If they think they would like a library that is a little different from the one you have right now. I think what we heard on the planning committee from the community was people like this library, but they come in and they don't stay because there's no place to sit. And there's no place to study, and there's no place for teens to do their thing. There's no place for children to do creative play at all and creative learning experience. It's a very small space, and the shelves are high. They're not child-friendly shelves. So it's, if you look around the building now, kind of think about these things. You know, you get used to a building when you use it. And, you know, you just sort of take it as the building it is and for what it gives you. You know, but sort of think about what is it about this building that I wish was different? And can we make that happen in the future? So, any other questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming. And hopefully you'll hear more soon. Or may not be that soon, but more in the future.
Yes.
So, and if you have any afterthoughts,
Yes.
get them to Karen, or she'll
We
be.
have a planning website on our website, so hansonlibrary.org/planning, and I'm putting all the documents and information on there so you can stay up to date with what we're doing.
Yeah. Good. Good. So, all right. Thank you. Yeah. You didn't have to write anything down.